And we get a rolling on the first show. Round 2 of the NFL draft. And the 49ers have selected in round 2, pick number 64, and it is Renardo Green from Florida State. And we'll talk all about it coming up right now. But of course, we're brought to you by Pig and a Pickle, the best barbecue in all of Northern California. Check them out. They're in Emeryville. They're in Corte Madera. They cannot be beat. Pig and a Pickle. Fantastic barbecue. You're going to love it. Thank you to them for being a proud sponsor of the Krug Show. All right, NFL draft day number 2. Niners were on the clock at their pick 64. They did not trade up. They did not move Deebo Samuel. They did not move Brandon Ayuk. They just stayed where they were slated to pick, and they took Renardo Green, a cornerback from Florida State. And you know what? I've loved this player for this entire second half of the college football season. He's just really aggressive, feisty corner. He's not the biggest guy. I mean, but he plays big. He's 5'11", 185, 190. But man, this guy's tough. He's physical. He can be overly physical. I mean, he gets a little handsy. He's had 11 penalties over the last 2 seasons. So if there's any downside to Renardo Green, is sometimes he gets too physical with receivers, but he plays strong, plays with a ton of passion. This guy breaks up lots and lots of passes. And I think this is a really good pick. This is a physical corner. Now, a lot of the draft guides, a lot of the mock drafts had him in like the 4th round, 5th round. And you're watching this guy and you're like, wait a second, he's got good size. He's got explosive movements. You can see he's a great athlete. Then you look at the college production, and he was productive at Florida State, and you're sitting there going, well, wait a second, why is this guy projected in the 5th round? I know it's a deep draft of corners, but it's not that deep. But this is a nice pickup for the 49ers. So a guy who, you look at his 40 is the 40 number I saw was 449. 449 is mediocre speed. It's fast enough. He plays fast. What also jumps out, 37.5-inch vertical. So the guy is a twitchy player, great makeup speed, great burst. And you can see that burst on the field. And he's a physical tackler. There's a lot of corners in this draft that can cover. Like a lot of people were big fans of Nate Wiggins. And I think Wiggins is going to be a solid NFL player, but he's so thin. I mean, you're talking about 165 pounds, and he looks really thin. And when you watch him out there, he just doesn't look like the kind of guy that's going to step up into the hole and bring down the running back. And he's purely a cover guy. Well, Renardo Green, I think, is a feisty, hard, competitive, athletic, dynamically athletic cover guy, but he also gives you that force against the run. I mean, he'll step up into the lane and really hit like a defensive back. Also, I think that Renardo Green can play a lot of spots. This guy might be the free safety that they're looking for down the road. He could play the nickel right away. He can play outside or inside, and he's an explosive athlete. I mean, the positional versatility, explosive athlete, really good college football player, and tested out nicely. To me, this was a guy that was very interesting, and there was a run on cornerbacks, in the top of the 2nd round, and to me, to be able to get a guy like this who's got good size, good speed, really aggressive, very experienced, later here in the 2nd round, I thought that was pretty good. Now, he was a 2-year starter at Florida State, and he played the perimeter cornerback in Adam Fuller's. They played a lot of balance coverage in their scheme, and this guy played for Fuller. I when I saw him a couple times earlier this year, he was incredibly physical against the run. I wanted to see him later in the year to see how he did against the pass and some of those big matchups that Florida State played in. But what I love is that the guys, he's got everything you want as a corner. He's got the length, he's got the aggressiveness, he's got the confidence. This is a very confident football player. in the zone. He plays with awareness. Against the run, you see the physicality. Um, I really like him as a player. He can be over aggressive, no question. This is a guy who plays for keeps. He's a very passionate player, and he's a hard hitter. Um, you know, there's going to be, this is not a player that's for everybody. And that's the other thing. He's not going to be a fit for every single scheme, but I think in the Niners scheme, if they want to use him outside, I think he's a good fit, and maybe down the road as a free safety. So I love the fact that this is a guy who's played at a pretty high level. He's got a great highlight film. There's no question. You can see the dynamic ability. But then you're also talking about a big athletic corner. And I think at this, of the group, and this is a great draft for corners, and there's going to be even more, deals on corners in day 3. There's lots and lots of good corners. But Renardo Green, to me, was in that top tier, and yet the draft guides put him in that, round 3 to 5 range. And here the 49ers are taking him late in the second round. But I really like him. I think he's a solid tackler. I think he's a solid coverage guy. I think that's the kind of guy that you want. You want a physical guy who's going to play the run and be super competitive at the catch point. And that's what Renardo Green is. When you watch him, he looks bigger on film than 5'11", 185. He plays big. When he comes up against the run, he gets guys onto the ground. I mean, he's a decent tackler. And what I love is just he's very competitive at the catch point. A lot of PBUs. He's tough. He's physical. The big concern is just, kind of overdoing it. 11 penalties over the last 2 years is a lot. I mean, that's a lot of penalties. But this is a guy who's a real solid football player, and I think he can potentially do it at multiple spots. I just think this is a nice get for the 49ers. I mean, the only, the downside is he's only got one career interception. The upside is it did come against Jaden Daniels in LSU after a receiver fell. So he hasn't been like this premier ball hawk, and you could definitely work on his ball skills. And he's, as far as by NFL standards, he's a mediocre size and speed guy. But what you really need to play defensive back in the NFL is you got to have incredible quickness. And this guy's incredibly quick, very athletic, and he closes. You can see him close on speed receivers. So he's got enough speed. I just think he's very competitive. There's a smoothness to his back pedal. I really like that. So he doesn't look like he's, losing steps. He's pretty smooth. He's pretty well coached. He gets at the top of the route. He's got to keep his hands off the receiver. I mean, that's it. And they really got to work with him on it because he did it a lot in college. But take that away, and man, you've got a guy who can play press man coverage, who's smooth on the turn, great hips, keeps his balance, plays the game on his feet, recognize what he sees. There's a lot of positive traits about Renardo Green. He only allowed one catch of 20 plus yards in all of 2023. It was a 22-yard reception against Syracuse. So, I mean, that's great. You don't want to see a cornerback giving up the deep ball. So, I really like Renardo Green. I think that's a solid addition for the 49ers. It gives them another defensive back. They've got great depth there. I think the competition this summer in Santa Clara at DB and at corner specifically is going to be fantastic. And, the nice thing too is, if you're going to be at the back end of the roster, with all the cornerback depth, let's say Renardo Green grabs a bench role. It's nice that you've got the positional versatility to potentially play as a backup safety, because they really don't have that depth. If you look at them, they've got Afonga and they've got Jair, and then it's Odom. and they don't really have tremendous depth at safety. So Renardo Green could also help them as far as depth, if as a bigger bodied corner that could maybe slide in and play the nickel free safety, maybe a couple different spots. He's very physical. He's physical. And, the one thing about Green is he's physical and he's confident, and I think he's a terrific tackler. But he also shows a real competitive fire. He closes space quickly. And I think at this point, this is kind of where I expected he should go. When I was watching him and I saw him projected in the 4th and 5th round, I'm thinking to myself, this guy looks like a late 2nd, early 3rd round pick for sure. Especially coming out of Florida State. I mean, if he was coming out of some small FCS school, it's one thing, but you're a big time corner who played at Florida State in the ACC, and you got positional versatility, and you got some great tape, and you got some pretty good measurables as well. He wasn't going in the 4th or 5th round. I think that was just kind of somebody gauged that wrong, and the Niners get him in the late 2nd, and I think that's pretty good. I know people will say, oh, well, he's projected in the 5th round by some mock drafts. They reached, but bottom line is you got to have a certain kind of guy in the NFL to play the corner. You got to have a certain level of athleticism. You got to have a certain level of size, of arm length, of reaction time. It's a rare guy that can actually play man coverage in the NFL and backpedal. Against guys who are running in the 4-3s and who know where they're going, and you're trying to mirror them up and down the field. It's a rare skill set. So when you find, a guy who can cover like Renardo Green and who's aggressive and physical, good against the run, mirrors receivers up and down the field, you grab him. And to me, he was one of my favorite kind of sleeper corners. Now, part of it was because I'm looking at him going, wow, they got this guy in the 4th and 5th round. That's a steal. But also when you start watching his film, you see the physicality and you see the completeness of his game. He's physical enough to bring receivers to the ground in the open field by himself. So he's a guy who can really help you set the edge in the run game. That's important. He plays with tons and tons of swagger and confidence. So that's, to me, vitally important. And I think you're also talking about a guy who is a leader. The Niners need some alphas in their secondary. They've lost a lot of good young players, and it's a young group of guys. And I think Green has that kind of personality where he's just like, he's a take charge kind of a guy. And you can see his confidence on the football field. So to me, it's a good pick. I like it there at the end of the 2nd round. Now the Niners do pick one more time in the 3rd round. It's going to be interesting to see what direction they go as far as round 3. I mean, so far you've got a wide receiver and you got a corner. They've operated exclusively on the perimeter. Are they going to get an offensive lineman? To me, if they are, maybe Javon Foster would be a perfect fit if he's on the board in the 3rd round. Defensive tackle wise, I don't know that I see a defensive tackle that's there. I mean, it was a big run here at the top of the 2nd round. So that one's kind of a difficult one to project. Maybe safety, there's probably a couple of those Utah safeties and Mustafa. If any of those guys are around in the 3rd round, I could definitely see them going safety, maybe linebacker. And you never know. I mean, it's at this point, I think you really do. If you're a really good football team, you have a couple needs. Maybe you take care of those early on. Then it's about best player available. So, look for great players, hunt for great players, and see if you can, unearth some. The Niners, the one thing about the Niners, they've done a really nice job after round 1. They've really struggled in round 1 to hit, but in rounds 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and 7, and even after the draft, they've really hit at a relatively high rate. So this next pick in the 3rd round should be interesting for sure. All right. After the Niners pick, we will definitely jump in and do another video, another live stream, and then after the end of the 3rd round, we'll do a recap live stream and answer all of your chats and look ahead to day 3 of the NFL draft. So, Kev, do you want to jump in for for a minute? You got a couple chats you want to jump in with?
Yeah, we only got one chat to go through. Your video is a little blurry. That's what people were saying. So we'll have to fix that after the stream. It's okay. It's something we can do about it now. We got one chat here. Well, before we go to the chat, let me just share my opinion.
What do you think, Renardo Green? Renardo Green, Kev, go.
I like Renardo Green. I really do. I think he's someone said in the chat he's a poor man's Cooper DeJean. I think he's a poor man's Nate Wiggins, and I really thought the Niners were going to take Nate Wiggins.
Way more physical than Wiggins, though, don't you think?
Yeah, but he's not. He lacks in tackling what Wiggins lacks in tackling. But he's a coverage guy. He's a great coverage guy. Just looking through all the draft notes, the word that gets used with this guy the most is calm. Everyone describes his game as calm. He's a calm, collected, cool receiver. He loves press man. I did a little research. His 257 press coverage snaps was first in college football last year. First or is it second? First or second? It was, second in football. Second in all of college football. So he loves the press man. He a lot of high ranking statistics metrics by PFF. He grades out really well in. He lacks in tackling, but I think this is a guy like
he's more of a hitter than a tackler. He's not a great form tackler for sure.
We talked ad nauseum this offseason about how the Niners need to have that shutdown corner. I think this guy, you're getting good value in the second round by drafting this guy because this guy can be a lockdown corner because he loves to press and he's calm, he's cool and collected, and you can watch him some snaps from him guarding Neighbors against LSU, and he guards him well. So I like the pick. But yeah, and then let's get to this last chat here. Craig Greasy says, Larry, your stream is all blurry and messed up.
So Thank you, sir. Is it that blurry? I didn't see blurry on my end at all.
Yeah, we'll fix it. We'll fix it after. It's okay.
All right. We moved some of the equipment around and see what happens when you move the equipment around. See what happens. All right. Thanks to Pig and a Pickle for being the title sponsor of the Krug Show. Watch for us immediately after the Niners pick in round 3. We're going to go inside, watch some round 3, and see what the Niners pull out of round 3. And then we'll do a live stream tonight. And I'm trying to chase down Lo Neal. We'll see if we can get Lo Neal in the house and get his thoughts on it as well. But we'll have a good time tonight, and we'll look back at rounds 2 and 3. But I like Renardo Green. It's for if you thought though you were going to tune into this thing, it's like Lynch did a little misdirection on us. He talked the other day. He's like, hey, you know what? Line of scrimmage. We really a lot of good linemen in this draft. Yeah, and then here he is, wide receiver corner to get it rolling. He was deking us. He was absolutely trying to pull one over. But no, join us.
I have a little bit of a conspiracy theory. My thoughts on this is that the Ravens have taken both of the Niners' targets. That's in my opinion. I think the Ravens have stolen the Niners' 2 targets in both rounds.
Nate Wiggins.
I think that the Niners were going to go Nate Wiggins last night, and the Ravens took him right before him, so they went Ricky Pearsall. Not saying they don't like Ricky Pearsall. They could love Ricky Pearsall. I thought they were going to go Nate Wiggins there. And then I'm thinking it's pretty obvious that the Niners wanted Rosengard and then traded back, potentially.
Because he went right in front of them.
Right. And then and then they traded back with the Chiefs.
That might be a blessing. And what did they get in that trade? They gave up a 6th and got a 5th or something like that? Is that sound right? It sounds like they jumped around there. I'll say this. A lot of people were like, oh, Xavier Worthy was the guy they wanted, and Kansas City jumped over him to get Xavier Worthy. I love Xavier Worthy, but Xavier Worthy runs go patterns on the sideline, and Ricky Pearsall makes plays with all kinds of stuff inside, condensed formations, and all kinds of inside kinds of plays. I mean, he's a guy who catches the ball inside and can take hits and can find soft spots. he's a guy that's going to be maddening for defenses to cover. But you know what I'm saying? I just don't. He fits with Brock Purdy more than Xavier Worthy fits with Brock Purdy. Now Worthy would have been nice because he would have ran off the coverage, but to me, Worthy is. I had him down as kind of a injury risk because you're talking about 164 pounds, and that's really really skinny. That's really skinny. So durability concerns.
The Niners got round 5, 130, 173rd pick.
And they gave up their 6th. Do you know what pick they gave up? They gave away their 6th. So obviously they just moved up probably 15, 20 picks. Who knows?
Yeah, the Chiefs got number 63 and a 6th, number 221, and the Niners got 64 and 173. So they moved up
221 to 173.
They moved up a decent amount. That's almost 40 slots. 40 slots for moving back one pick.
Right. But yeah, no, I to me the Renardo Green is I like that. I like that because they needed one more corner who could be a starter. And I think Renardo Green has that starting potential. And that's to me that's a good pick. The Pearsall pick, I mean, you know, there's a lot of people who ripped it. He wasn't on my radar as the receiver that I would have gone for. I would have gone for Xavier Legette. But I can understand why they love, you know, a receiver that has great ball skills. And watching Puka and Cooper Kupp, and, you know, it's like when you get these receivers that are in total lockstep with the quarterback, man, and they get great quickness and ball skills, those guys can be very, very valuable. I mean, it's, you know, right now, I'm thinking I'd rather have Xavier Legette. But to be honest, if it's week 5 and the Niners are fourth quarter in a 3rd and 5, and for whatever reason, the rookie's in there because there's some injury or whatever, and he's in there, you know, I think it's reasonable to think that he could make a play under pressure in the middle of the field in an NFL game in the first month in the league because he's really polished and his dad was a coach and his dad, you know, drilled him from a really young age. Not every receiver, you know, can do that. There's sometimes a big, you know, adjustment period. So I think part of the upside of Ricky is definitely that he can help them right away.
Just going back to Renardo Green for a second, too.
Yeah.
You said it yesterday. The receivers in the NFC West looking pretty good right now. You know, with Marvin Harrison Jr. going to the Cardinals, and you got Puka Nacua and Cooper Kupp on the Rams, and you got DK over there in Seattle. You know, the NFC West has some pretty daunting receivers, and I don't think the Niners are trying to run it back with, you know, Ambry Thomas on the outside, Demo in the slot. I think they want to have someone that they can put on the outside and lock down some of those receivers.
And Green can do that. Green can shut some guys down. He really is. He's a physical. He's got a swagger. He plays with confidence. He can shut guys down.
Yep, 100%.
Yeah.
Well, the Niners pick in about 20 picks, it seems, or 15 picks. So we'll
about
be
15
back
picks. So we'll be back. We'll be back in a bit. But
30 minutes.
There you go. Thanks for supporting the Krug Show. Go Niners. Hopefully they get somebody good in round 3. Did Cedric Gray go? Did you see if Cedric Gray went in round 2? Has he gone? To me, there's some really good linebackers.
Cedric Gray is still out there. The top of the board right now is TJ Tampa, Peyton Wilson, who's like one of the probably the best linebacker in the class. Cedric Gray, Jaden Hicks, Jatavion Sanders, Jalen McMillan, Blake Corum.
Corum's still there. Ooh,
yeah,
what if the Niners?
You got two.
What if the Niners go 3rd round running back?
You got 2 really good linebackers sitting at the top of the board right now. With Peyton
I know.
Wilson
I'd go Cedric Gray. Cedric Gray. Well, Peyton Wilson might be the guy too, and Peyton Wilson's just a durability thing. I mean,
and then
when he's healthy, he's awesome.
For you offensive line fans, top guys on the board: Christian Jones, Dominique,
love him.
Javon Foster, Tylen Gramble. Let's see, guard Christian Haynes.
I would go Jalen Foster.
Christian
to me, if you're
still there,
Jalen Foster. This is a Jalen Foster pick.
Javon Foster.
Or Javon Foster. Yeah, Javon Foster. He played left tackle. He played right tackle. He showed incredibly strong hands at the Senior Bowl. Once he gets his hands on you, and I think he's got a frame too. If you look at him, he's 6'5", 320, but he's got a frame where he could easily put on, 10 pounds and be even bigger. And he's quick. He's got long arms. To me, he is a really, really underrated tackle. I thought maybe one of the most underrated. Really like him. Really like Walter Rouse. Really like Garrett Greenfield. Really like the Texas kid. Yeah, I think it's time for offensive line right now.
All right. Well, good stuff.
Sounds good. We'll see you. We'll see you in 45 minutes after round 3, the Niners pick. Until then, peace.
Yeah, never met a man I've been scared of. Careful, you gon' get exactly what you ask.